He is risen.
He is risen indeed.
You know, I have to be perfectly honest with you. The only person I ever knew who used the word indeed growing up was Alfred, the butler in the Batman series. He used to use that word all the time. And he would, you know, he was always so English and proper and things like that. I always thought that was just a proper word that proper, sophisticated people use. But years ago, centuries ago, the early church found it in their hearts to celebrate the resurrection of Christ by saying, He is risen indeed. And think about the word indeed with me. Obviously, resurrection is a deed. And so oftentimes, when we think of something big and visionary and noble like that, we're talking about something that's theoretical. And every now and then you have to say, indeed. You're saying, gosh, it really did happen. He is risen. He is risen indeed. Can we ever get our minds around the fact that that deed has become a reality? And that's what that indeed, He is risen indeed, invites us to do. Not just think about, not just dwell upon or meditate upon or anything like that, but to rejoice in. He is risen. All right, we get to live that out. I read to you from the Gospel according to Luke, the 24th chapter, the first 8 verses. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their very obvious and apparent fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why did you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen. Remember how He told you while He was still with you in Galilee. The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, be crucified, and on the 3rd day be raised again." Then they remembered His words. God bless the reading, the preaching, the hearing, more important than these, the living of His holy word. That His will would be done. And that we could say from our hearts, He is risen indeed. Amen. I believe in God. I do. I believe in God. I want to talk about my belief in God. Before I start talking about my belief in God, I need to tell you I was raised by parents who believed in God too. One of the things that they used to do as a result of that belief was they used to take me to church. They took me to Sunday school, and they even took me to vacation Bible school in the summer. During my childhood, if you grew up in church, you might know it too. But we used to sing this song. We'd gather in a circle, and we'd sing this song, the lyrics to it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Here we go. It sounds to me like you grew up on that same little line, that same little ditty. Okay? I reinterpreted that song quite a bit through my life. I have. When I got a little older, I became very dismissive of that song because that's for little kids. I was too grown up for it. At 8 years old, I was too grown up for it. When I got even older, it occurred to me, when my little sister was learning that song, oh, they're just doing that to get little children to participate in it. That's what it's all about. By the way, the people who raised me for Christ, they didn't stop at clapping your hands. They had you jumping on one foot, patting your head, rubbing your heart, and all that kind of stuff. Just, all in the name of showing that you're happy. When I got even older, though, I wondered if happy existed in a philosophical sense. I had become rather skeptical and rather cynical and even angry at life. And so to me, happiness was quite evasive. So I dismissed that song for even philosophical reasons. When I got even older, the message of that song convicted me. Don't tell me I'm having an existential philosophical debate with a song called "If You're Happy and You Know It, Clap Your Hands." But it was that lyric that said, if you're happy and you know it, then your life will surely show it. And I had to ask myself, am I really happy? And does my life really show it? I thought about that song a lot, at least that one lyric. Are we happy? Do our lives show it? I'm happy. Seriously. I'm happy. I don't need your stuff to be happy. I get it a lot. I've even learned to put my hat in my hand and say, if you're happy, please tell your life that. As a pastor, from the vantage point from which we sit, we get eye contact. You learn to read faces. You learn when you're reading people, whether you're losing them, whether you got too far ahead of them, things like that. We spend a lot of time reading you. We really do. This room really does avail quite a bit of eye contact. Some of you seem connected. I'll even say the majority of you. You switched on. It seems like there's a relationship with Christ there. And even at the mention of Him, or even in some of the reading of His Word, boy, there's a nice boil going on in the heart. It's obvious, and you can tell it. All the audience that applies to you, turn your ears off for a little bit, okay? Because some of you don't look like you want to be here. I love you. I'm intrigued with you. I sat in your seat before. You know what it's like to just put a whammy down on a good point because I'm angry and I know it. The sad thing is, if you're angry and you know it, then your life will surely show that too. I want to see that change. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus, His Son. I believe in the Holy Spirit. Today we're commemorating the fact that He's risen again. And I want that message to not simply maintain you. I want it to change you. Okay, everybody else, you can rejoin the conversation again. I really want to see that change you. God's not done changing all of us. God's not done changing any of us. I believe in God. That's a picture of God. And I see in this particular picture that God is white and aged and with a very long, full beard and a receding hairline. And I don't believe that's what God really looks like. I believe in God. I've had people engage me in discussion and very polite debate before and said, well, what's your evidence of a God? And you see, I subscribe to a type of philosophy that's called philosophical theism, which requires something to start, something to bring about what is called the original cause. What made things go bang? And I believe that the best explanation for that is God. You'll hear philosophers and physicists and things like that argue and debate from time to time. You can get on the internet and hear some really wonderful discussion and debate on the entire issue. What's the first cause? Why is there something instead of nothing? And to me, the most honest and intellectually fulfilling answer to that is that a creator did it. The creator. And that creator I call God. I do that in all humility. And the other evidence of that is the complexity of life that's been organized the way that it has. You know, look, those are the parts of a watch. Even the parts of that watch are very, very complex. I think something very smart and very intelligent needs to make those gears and those cogs and those springs and all the other instrumentation that would go into a timepiece. Suppose I took all those pieces of a watch and I put them in a paper sack and began to shake them and shake them and shake them and shake them. And after hundreds of thousands of millions of years, without instructions, but by chance, suppose after just shaking that around, this came out. Wound up with all the numbers in sequential order and being on time. I mean, ticking. They say a broken watch is right twice a day. What if this was right and proper every minute of the day? Would you think that's a very likely chance? They say that mathematically that is possible. But it's such a long shot, such a long consequence to go from this organizing itself and becoming this, that it's virtually impossible. To me, it takes less faith to believe that a creator did it. Now, I know I have good friends who come from the scientific, from the scientist point of view, who would claim that you're talking about metaphysics at a time like this, and you're talking about the supernatural, and my philosophical naturalism doesn't allow for supernaturalism. But honestly, I think it takes more faith to believe that this can come by chance than for a creator to do it. Likewise, you'll hear people talk about, let's get a bunch of chimpanzees together. We're a few hundred people. Suppose we're all chimpanzees and we had typewriters and we began clacking away at typewriters. Ream after paper, ream after paper, ream after paper. Eventually, they say we could count on these chimps to put together the collected works of Shakespeare. Is it mathematically possible? Well, we have to say, mathematically it is possible. I mean, I wouldn't want to bet on those odds. I was watching a mathematician on YouTube not too long ago who was spelling out in the mathematics what it would take for chimpanzees to spell out to be or not to be. That is the question. And they were talking about the trillions to the trillionth to the trillionth chances of just something that simple in the works of Shakespeare being produced. But there's more complexity in one strand of DNA than all of the Encyclopedia Britannica. We think that chance is going to do that. To me, the most fulfilling explanation, to me, the most satisfying explanation is that a supernatural, creative God did it, and that's our God. I have other friends who come along and say, well, you can believe in your God. I believe in just one less God than you do. And that's a very clever form of argumentation. And to that I have to say, well, I believe in one God. And many of the gods, many of the different religions really don't even have a creator in their lore or in their in their revelations. And many of the Eastern religions don't even touch on that and become philosophies more than anything. A timeless, creative God is what seems to catch my attention. It's what I find in the revelation of the God of Israel, and it's revealed to us in the Old and New Testaments. And how do we get from being happy and knowing it to where our lives surely show it? It's to get in touch with God. So I want to spend our time together, our remaining few minutes, giving 6 reasons, just 6, on why I'm a Christ follower, why I'm a believer in Jesus Christ.